A very good evening. We are coming to you live from Hospital Hill in Babane. This is the news at 8. I'm Lungilile Makakula. With me is Zama Nzimanze on the sign language. Let's get straight to it and let's take a look at tonight's headlines. The Prime Minister has applauded the Global Fund for its unwavering support to the Kingdom of Eswatini. The Deputy Prime Minister says his office will organize a meeting with Autism Eswatini and parents of children who are autistic to get their views and opinions that will be included in the disability regulations that are being formulated. The Minister of Education has announced new members of the Eswatini board. The Prime Minister, Ambrose Dlamini, has applauded the Global Fund for its unwavering support to the Kingdom of Eswatini. The Prime Minister was speaking when commissioning the newly elected Eswatini Global Fund Country Coordinating Mechanism.
The Delisa Malinga-led Eswatini Global Fund Country Coordinating Mechanism (CCM) will be in office for the next 3 years. Chairperson Delisa Malinga implored the Ministry of Health to adequately support them.
Much as the world's attention is rightly focused on COVID-19, we should not forget the HIV/AIDS response. I would love to advocate for increased investing in HIV prevention. I strongly believe that as a country, we need to ensure that interventions are targeted and address gender equity and human rights concerns. The CCM office still faces resource constraints which affect its day-to-day operations. To this end, we request for continued support from your office.
The Prime Minister says if it wasn't for the support of the Global Fund, the Kingdom wouldn't have been able to achieve all the milestones it has achieved in the health sector.
Since 2003, the CCM has been able to raise over 4 billion emalangeni in health funding that has complemented our country's gallant fight against these public health threats. Over the past 3 years alone, the outgoing CCM has been able to mobilize over 1 billion emalangeni in funding, which collectively has pushed the country closer to achieving its health targets. Indeed, we stand here today as the only country in the world to have surpassed the global HIV and AIDS target of 95, 95, 95. We are one of only 20 countries globally identified by the World Health Organization as having the potential to eliminate malaria by year 2025.
The outgoing CCM played a pivotal role in securing funding of up to 91 million emalangeni, which will be used to strengthen the country's health interventions until 2024. Last year, His Majesty King Mswati III made a $6 million pledge to the Global Fund. For Eswatini TV News, I'm Linton Kule in Babane.
The Deputy Prime Minister, Themba Masuku, says his office will organize a meeting with Autism Eswatini and parents of children who are autistic to get their views and opinions to be used in the disability regulations that are being formulated by the DPM's office. Masuku was speaking at the World Awareness Day commemoration, which was held at Esibayeni Lodge, where an official website of the organization was launched. World Autism Awareness Day is usually celebrated on the 2nd of April each year. It could not be commemorated this year due to COVID-19. The theme for 2020 is promoting basic health and special services to children and individuals with autism spectrum disorders. Autism is a lifelong disability that affects the way a person communicates, and the profile of persons with autism globally is 62 million. Eswatini has not been spared, and as such, the country is also experiencing a significant increase in the prevalence of children who present with autism disorders. The Deputy Prime Minister Themba Masuku says there is a great need to develop and establish proactive advocacy and awareness-raising initiatives on autism that would support them to receive relevant and practical services. He says his office will organize a meeting with Autism Eswatini and parents of children who are autistic to get their views and opinions to be used in the disability regulations that are being formulated by the DPM's office.
Ama-regulations akanolunga nje kuphela ukuthi akhiwe ngoba kukhona ama-consultant labhali lahamba sihlolela. Kuhle lokuthi sive direct kulabantu labaphila nalokho. Sitokwazi ke ukuthi nasibhala mele sibhala kokutawuya eParliament sibe sikuconza hayi ngoba sikufunze ebhukwini sibe sive ngalabantu labanamathela.
Board Chairperson Senzo Hlachwayo commends the media in playing a major role on creating an awareness on autism.
In addition, we'd like to thank in particular the media for helping with awareness raising. We are privileged, Your Excellency and our guests, that the media has proven to be a friend to Autism Eswatini.
Autism Eswatini Director Trifina Mvubu officially launched the organization's website.
This website will help give the organization more visibility as Autism Eswatini does her work.
UN President Coordinator Natalie Ndongose, who was represented by Fanele Fagute, says every child with autism can reach full potential if they receive support from their parents.
It is time that we enable and encourage our children living with autism in Eswatini and across the world to achieve their dreams and change the world.
During the event, parents and siblings shared their experiences on living and taking care of a person with autism. Reporting, I'm Lungile Makakula with Mbonga Dube, Matapa. The Minister of Economic Planning and Development, Dr. Tambokina, says the decrease in the country's population poses a threat to the country's economy. The minister said this in a meeting between the ministry, UNFPA and senators where they were discussing development issues that pertains to the national population policy. The meeting was held in Pikes Peak Hotel on Thursday.
On Thursday, the Ministry of Economic Planning and Development and UNFPA held a meeting with senators to discuss various strategies that can be implemented by government to help the country economically by reviewing the national population policy. The Minister of Economic Planning and Development, Dr. Tambokina, says the decrease in the country's population by 0.7% poses some threat to the national economy.
Number one, getting emaswati la ngeteka kuvameke ukuthi bantu bengeteke ngetindlela yokuthi batalana bese bakhona labefika evela.
Senators pointed out that the decrease in the country's population is nothing bad for the country, especially after paying attention to the country's economy at present. Senator Cleopas Lamini says the increase in the country's population must be proportionate to the increase of the country's economy.
So sifanele ngenzibe consent ngekuthi bantu abasakhuli kakhulu kuwe umnotho wona ungakhuli at all. Maybe we should start there ukuthi i-concern yethu akube ukuthi umnotho ukhula kangakanani, ema-jobs siwa-create kangakanani.
The meeting's agenda touched on various developmental aspects, including gender equality at work and youth employment opportunities. Reporting for Eswatini TV News is Puma Pimsweli, Pikes Peak.
The Minister for Tourism and Environmental Affairs, Moses Vilagati, on Thursday had a ministerial tour at the Shiselweni Forestry Company factory. The minister says the ministry is committed to assisting the forestry industry in any way possible because forestry plays a major role in the country's economy.
Some of the members of the newly introduced Eswatini board served in the previous board, while some come into the board for the first time. Members of the board are Thandi Dlamini, who is chairperson, Musa Nxumalo, Dr. Faith Mgomezulu, Modison Makakula, Tembekile Msibi, Cynthia Hlophe, Velisimelane and Celiwe Mohammed, who is secretary. When officially introducing the board, the Minister of Education and Training, Lady Howard, tasked members of the newly introduced board with the responsibility of ensuring that Eswatini is developed and preserved, as vernacular languages have a way of boosting socio-economic development.
Kubhekekile ukuthi lolu lwimi nalo silubone luba ngonsondonzima njengaletinye tilwimi.
The minister says Eswatini must be developed for it to reach the level of other developed languages. She says Eswatini language is important because it is one of the features that make Eswatini people unique. She says Eswatini also helps showcase the beauty of the culture of the people of Eswatini. The minister says since language is a God-given gift, it is therefore very important to ensure that important policy documents be penned down in vernacular.
Sinensayeya sonke kulondoloda nekuthuthukisa lulwimi kuto tonke tinhlangothi.
The minister says many developed countries are what they are today primarily because their national development agenda always centered around indigenous language preservation. She says in Eswatini too, Eswatini should be widely used in hospitals, government ministries, courts, in big meetings, and in all imaginable facets of the economy. For Eswatini TV News, Klengiwe Ndlovu with Muzim Konda in Babane.
Apologies for the mix-up. The previous story is that of the Minister of Education, Lady Howard, where she was announcing the new Eswatini board. We'll continue with our news. The Ministry of Labour and Social Security, in collaboration with the Eswatini Economic Policy Analysis and Research Centre, ESEPAC, has launched a national skills audit research exercise which will, amongst other things, identify existing skills gaps in Eswatini's economy, emerging skills requirements, and to identify the exact skills required by industry to sustain economic growth.
The National Skills Audit, which is being conducted by the Ministry of Labour and Social Security in collaboration with the Eswatini Economic Policy Analysis and Research Centre, ESEPAC, comes at a time when Eswatini is searching for ways of pulling out the economy out of recession, with focus being on key growth sectors such as agriculture, ICT, mining, education, and the tourism industries. Officially launching this research exercise, the Minister of Labour and Social Security, Mkhosi Vilagati, explained that proper economic growth cannot take place if the kingdom doesn't have a well-defined economy.
The output of this exercise will give pathways towards crafting of a national human resource development plan, which will, among other things, guide investment in higher education, TVET education, as well as streamline enterprises training plans. This exercise is particularly important that once the skills shortages and mismatch have been addressed, unemployment currently sitting at 23% and youth unemployment at 47.4% will hopefully also be addressed through targeted programs to bridge the skills gap.
Undersecretary in the Ministry of Education and Training, Peggy Gama, who represented the minister in this launch, said speedy identification of skills mismatches in Eswatini could help improve many social challenges. Acting ESEPAC Director Dr. Tabosa Kolo says one of the study's major outputs will be the precise definition of Eswatini's labor supply and demand and identification of mismatched skills. The study will also give a clear picture of who the unemployed graduates are, as well as identifying the type of graduates who leave Eswatini for greener pastures. For Eswatini TV News, Hlengiwe Ndlovu with Mbongwa Dube in Mbabane.
The Parliament of Eswatini takes this opportunity to notify members of the public, individuals, organizations and stakeholders that the Senate Portfolio Committee of the Ministry of ICT will be conducting public hearings on the Eswatini Broadcasting Bill of 2019. The objective of the bill, among other things, is to provide for the establishment of the Eswatini Broadcasting Corporation, national public broadcaster for Eswatini, by amalgamating the operations and resources of Eswatini Television and Eswatini Broadcasting and Information Services. Those interested in making either oral or written submissions are advised to contact the committee clerk Ntombiyancenga Dlamini on 79101522. The deadline for registering interest is Wednesday, 11th November 2020 at 4 p.m. At this moment, we'll take a look at a report on COVID-19 from the Ministry of Health. The Ministry of Health has reported 12 new confirmed COVID-19 cases in the last 24 hours in the country. In a statement issued by the Minister for Health, Liz Nkosi, a total of 453 results were received today, of which 12 tested positive, bringing the total number of confirmed cases to date in the country to 5,967. The statement shows that there are 144 active cases, 5,694 have recovered, 117 have died, and 12 have been registered for care. The Manzini region has 2,671 confirmed cases. Woho has 2,263 cases. Lubombo has 535, and the Shiselweni region has 498 confirmed COVID-19 cases. Eswatini Electricity Company has applied for an average tariff increase of 7.16% from Eswatini Regulatory Authority. This was said by the authority's Chief Executive Officer, Vusumuzi Mkhumane.
The tariff review application made by Eswatini Electricity Company to Eswatini Energy Regulatory Authority says the tariff increase will be for the next 2 financial years from 2021 to 2023. 10% increases for domestic customers, while 6.8% and 7.22% is for small commercial and time of use customers respectively. The authority's Chief Executive Officer, Vusumuzi Mkhumane, says EEC says the increase is based on a revenue requirement of 2.55 billion emalangeni from 2021-2022 and 2.93 billion emalangeni from 2022 to 2023. Mkhumane says ISER is expected to announce a decision by latest February of the following year after 3-month review process.
According to the rules of the tariff methodologies, that once we have received this request, we should bring it to the public's attention as soon as possible. This is a request. The tariff could be the same, could be low, could be high, whatever comes out. But what needs to be done is we have to analyze the costs of doing business previously and going forward. And then we also have to get views from other stakeholders that have got certain information that can help us in the decision-making process. So at the end of the day, the boxes that need to be ticked is that we have looked at the request, we have had public hearings that can give us information that relates to the decision-making, and any other issues that can come out. Those are the issues that we put into consideration.
In an effort to comply with COVID-19 regulations and maintain social distancing due to limited spaces, Mkhumane encourages the public to register to confirm attendance by indicating at info@isera.org.sz or call 2404-2103. For Eswatini TV News, Fortune Dlangamandla, Mountain Inn.
MTN Eswatini virtually held a Fintech Indaba to raise an awareness around financial technology, as it is easier for people to do business and easier to interact with their customers. Chief Operations Officer at MTN, Sam Shongwe, says the objective of the seminar is to sharpen entrepreneurs' skills on financial technology. MTN Eswatini hosted the Fintech Indaba in partnership with the Central Bank of Eswatini, Fintech and the Center for Financial Inclusion. The theme of the Indaba is a growing business through financial technology. The session was attended by about 100 participants who were interacting throughout the live stream. Chief Operations Officer at MTN, Sam Shongwe, says the objective of the seminar was to raise an awareness around financial technology because it is easier for people to do business and it is easier for them to interact.
That the growth of our economy and businesses would be much easier if we scale through such services as fintech. The pandemic that we are faced with has actually shown us that now we actually rely on fintech to make it easier for people to interact, to make it easier for people to do business. So it was creating that kind of awareness and also to come up with what can we do further to actually improve financial technology in Eswatini.
He says he hopes the Indaba was beneficial and that they will use the information to grow their businesses. Reporting, I'm Lungilile Makakula in Babane. The Eswatini Meteorological Services is looking at how climate change affects livelihoods of females and children. Eswatini Meteorological Services Director Tutun Hlengetwa says it is important to pass climate change regulations that will protect women and children from the changes that comes with climate change.
Eswatini Meteorological Services Director Tutun Hlengetwa says climate change goes along with the importance of preaching for gender equality as stipulated on the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal number 5. She says climate change comes with different challenges for both genders.
On one hand, we are working on a climate change action program that will eventually be submitted to the UN as a nationally determined contribution, which is the country's commitment. And we are also working on a country program to engage with the Green Climate Fund. And as we are doing this, we are committed to making sure that gender issues are also taken into perspective, because if we fight climate change and do not take gender into perspective, there are certain members of the populace that will be left behind, and those members are also a significant proportion of the populace, in particular the women and the girl child.
Sizakele Hlatshwayo from Women in Law says females and children are mostly affected by climate change.
In most cases, women and children, when there is climate change issues or disasters or any kind of destabilization that happens due to the climate change, they are the first ones to be affected. For instance, if there is no water at home, it is the women, it is the girls that have to travel long distances to fetch water, to find firewood, and all those basic needs. Women are greatly affected.
Hlengetwa says it is important to get women and children's views when crafting climate change policies so they will be protected from being subjected to undesirable conditions. For Eswatini TV News, Fortune Hlangamandla, Ezulwini.
It's 23 minutes past 8. At this moment, we shall take a break. We will come back with our sports news.
At Build It, you can do it with the ultimate workhorse. So load up at Build It and you could win one of 10 Nissan NP200 Buckies. Plus, over 380 Stanley toolkits up for grabs. Hurry, promotion ends 14 November. Build it.
Welcome back. You're still watching the news at 8. Interim Sitebe Samhlekazi head coach Bongmusa Mdluli says they are worried about injuries during the COSAFA women's tournament, as he says they did not train properly. Mdluli was speaking ahead of their clash against South Africa.
Sithebe Samhlekas, that is playing the COSAFA Women's Cup, started well when they defeated Comoros by 4-2 in the first game of the tournament. The team going to their second game in Group A, where they will be facing the host South Africa. The head coach Bongosa Mdluli says he's worried about injuries they sustaining.
Coming from a long break, a long layoff at home at Eswatini. The last time we kicked the ball, it was around February. So we are coming from a long break, and we know even the other teams, they are coming from a long break. So we are a little bit sluggish, but we worried a little bit because of the cramping and the injuries. It is natural because even the training time, it was not adequate. It was, I think, 2 weeks or so of loading, and then now the muscles are cramping, the muscles are breaking down. But we are going to manage the situations scientifically and otherwise. We are going to try to come up with something. We hope with the help of God, of course, we are going to, this time we are going to go a little bit step further.
South African coach Elise Desire says Eswatini showed against Comoros that they have staying power by coming from behind against Comoros, and that they can shoot from distance. So they will need to be on top of their game at all times to avoid conceding from long ranges. South Africa defeated Angola by 2-0. For Sithebe Samhlekas to stand a better chance of going forward, they will need to beat South Africa tomorrow in a game that will start at 3:30 in the afternoon. Reporting for Eswatini TV Sports News, I am Patizo Msibi. Pictures are sourced from COSAFA TV.
Q Sports Association President Muntu Dlamini says they want to start a national league that will be represented by teams from all the regions of the country, which will make it easy to select the national team. A report next.
The Q Sports Association has had a national team back in 2008, and since then there has been troubles and fights within the organization, which resulted in the Sport Council suspending them from affiliating. Some players who love the sport decided to come together and form a new association, which is again fully recognized by the Sport Council. According to the president of the Q Sports Association, Muntu Dlamini, they now want to start a national league which will be represented by all the regions in the country.
Yes, it is true that we are preparing to have a national team as Q Sports Association, but the starting point is to make sure that all the regions are active. As we may recall, the Q Sport Association is formed by Manzini region and Lubombo region. Meanwhile, the whole region is busy preparing the requirements to meet the affiliation requirements. And then Shiselweni will be visiting Shiselweni very soon to make sure that they are also active. Once all the regions are active, then we'll be able to have a national team which will be selected from all the regions.
Dlamini says once they have the national league, it will be easy to grow the sport and get sponsorships. Reporting for Eswatini TV Sports News, I am Patizo Msibi with Fortune Dlangamandla Mbabane.
We've come to the end of our 8 o'clock news bulletin, but before we leave you, let's take a recap of tonight's headlines. The Prime Minister has applauded the Global Fund for its unwavering support to the Kingdom of Eswatini. The Deputy Prime Minister says his office will organize a meeting with Autism Eswatini and parents of children who are autistic to get their views and opinions that will be included in the disability regulations that are being formulated. The Minister of Education has announced new members of the Siswati board. Thank you very much for watching. We will leave you with the weather. Have a good night and stay safe.